Listen, the whispers in the culture have been screaming for months, and tonight the entire building finally caves in on Papoose and Claressa Shields, because Remy Ma just detonated the cleanest, coldest, most surgical career-ending bar of the year, and the cease-and-desist that leaked out of Papoose's camp is not the mic drop he thought it was, it is the confession letter. Sis, y'all better sit down for this one, because the woman who covered for that man for 17 years, the woman who bankrolled his commissary while she was locked away, the woman who single-handedly built the only relevance the name Papoose has ever known, has finally taken the gloves off, and every single receipt she has been quietly holding is now on the table. Reportedly, y'all, the paperwork Papoose's attorney filed against Remy Ma over the WYFL track is the exact same paperwork that just exposed the entire operation, because buried inside that letter is a name that had absolutely no business being there, and the second Remy read that name, she picked up the pen, walked into the booth, and lit the whole clearance rack camp on fire with "Wanna go?" Come to find out, Papoose did not just fumble Remy Ma, he tried to destiny swap her, and now the woman he tried to trade her in for is the same woman actively driving him off the cliff. Look, we have to rewind this whole thing, because too many people out here still do not understand what Remy Ma actually is to the culture and what she has actually been to Papoose. Remy Ma is not a rap wife. Remy Ma is not a reality TV +1. Remy Ma is one of the most technically gifted female lyricists to ever touch a New York booth, a Terror Squad general, a Grammy-nominated pen, a Versus survivor, and the direct blueprint that every so-called new school female spitter has been quietly studying since 2017. Remy Ma is business. Remy Ma is discipline. Remy Ma is the reason Papoose ever got a Breakfast Club chair, a state property throwback moment, a mixtape rotation, or a Hot 97 phone call in the last decade. Remy Ma is the favor. And the second Papoose forgot that the favor was Remy Ma, everything he touched started rotting in real time. That is not shade. That is a timeline. Here is where it turns, because the leaked cease-and-desist was dated all the way back to April, which means Papoose's legal team was already trying to muzzle Remy Ma months before the public even knew there was a diss track to muzzle. Remy Ma dropped WYFL in April. No names. No faces. No shots you could point at unless you already knew where the bruises were. And Papoose knew exactly where the bruises were, because within about a week his lawyer allegedly overnight shipped that cease-and-desist letter to Remy Ma's team demanding she stop performing the record, stop uploading the record, stop referencing the record. Sis. That is not the move of a man who is unbothered. That is the move of a man who heard the record, drove home in silence, sat in the driveway for 45 minutes, walked into the house, and got yelled at by somebody. And that somebody, if you read between the lines of the letter, was not Papoose. That somebody, family, was Claressa Shields. Y'all, the strangest, most self-incriminating sentence in the entire cease-and-desist is the sentence that drags Claressa Shields into a marital dispute she legally has nothing to do with. Legally, if Papoose wants to challenge lyrics his wife wrote about him, that is a two-person conversation. It is Remy Ma and Papoose. Claressa Shields is not on the marriage certificate. Claressa Shields is not on the co-parenting paperwork. Claressa Shields is not on the record label. Claressa Shields is not a party to any of the actual grievances. So why in the world does her name appear in Papoose's legal letter defending her honor? Because Papoose did not write that letter alone. Because Claressa Shields, in my honest opinion, is the actual co-author of that cease-and-desist. Because Claressa Shields is the one who cannot let it go. Because Claressa Shields is the one whose insecurities are running the entire situationship, and Papoose is now the passenger in a car she refuses to let him drive. As a matter of fact, look at the pattern. Every single time Claressa Shields has been given a microphone in the last year, Cam Newton's show, The Breakfast Club with the elephant in the room moment, the softer sit-down interviews, the podcast circuit, Claressa Shields has voluntarily walked into a conversation about Remy Ma. Nobody made her. Nobody dragged her. Claressa Shields keeps volunteering. Claressa Shields is the one who said Papoose's biological children are her stepkids. Claressa Shields is the one who spoke on divorce paperwork she has never seen. Claressa Shields is the one who let a grown man's estranged wife live rent-free in her mouth for 12 straight months, and then, the exact second Remy Ma responds in the only language Remy Ma has ever needed, which is bars, Claressa Shields hides behind Papoose's lawyer like it is all somehow blindsiding and cruel. Sis. You do not get to swing and then file a restraining order against the mirror. Hold on, though, because the cease-and-desist actually says, and I quote the sentiment, that Papoose and Miss Shields have never spoken badly about Remy Ma, have never disparaged Remy Ma, and have never done anything to warrant a diss record. Anyway now, let us test that claim. Papoose is the man who publicly told the world he ghostwrote 90% of his wife's catalog. Papoose is the man who, whenever Remy Ma's name comes up in an interview, cannot stop volunteering that he was the one holding it down. Papoose is the man who tried to piggyback off Remy Ma's Verzeuse momentum, off Remy Ma's Chrome 23 momentum, off Remy Ma's every reinvention, while simultaneously trying to rewrite the origin story of her pen. And Remy Ma, being Remy Ma, waited. Remy Ma sat in that terror squad silence. Remy Ma let the culture connect the dots. And when Remy Ma finally responded on WIFL with the line about the nerve of you saying you ghostwrote something, every rapper on the East Coast knew exactly who she was pointing at. Look, the boldest, dumbest, most exposing part of this entire cease-and-desist is the fact that Papoose says he is not going to answer Remy Ma in the studio. Papoose says he is going to answer her in the courtroom. And that single sentence is the death certificate for every top 5 lyricist claim Papoose has ever made in his career. A real lyricist does not run to a lawyer when his wife out-raps him. A real lyricist opens Pro Tools. A real lyricist calls his engineer. A real lyricist takes 8 bars and hands them back. Papoose knows, and every A&R in New York knows, that he is not a match for Remy Ma in the booth. Not on a technical level. Not on a cadence level. Not on a punchline level. Not on a breath control level. Not on a story mode level. Remy Ma would eat Papoose alive on a beat, and Papoose knows it, and that is why he is trying to make this a legal fight instead of a lyrical one. Discount lyricist, courtroom heart. Y'all, and then Remy Ma pulled the pin on the second grenade, because after the cease-and-desist leaked, Remy Ma did not go quieter, Remy Ma went louder. Remy Ma performed WIFL live and uncut at Angie Martinez's barbecue at the end of July, in front of half of Hot 97, half of Power 105, and every gatekeeper who has ever passed on a Papoose record. Remy Ma stood on that stage, spit the record from the top of her lungs, and let the crowd finish her sentences. Angie Martinez was there. Fat Joe was there. The culture was there. And then Remy Ma, in the calmest, most surgical move of her entire career, dropped a follow-up record called Wanna Go, timed, and I mean surgically timed, to drop the day before Claressa Shields' fight. Sis. Do you understand the emotional damage of watching a woman you have publicly antagonized for a year drop a track about you the night before the biggest athletic event of your career? Remy Ma did not just respond. Remy Ma choreographed a public execution and put it on the calendar. Come to find out, the reason Wanna Go hit so much harder than WIFL is the same reason every truly viral diss record in hip-hop history has ever hit. Remy Ma stopped hinting. Remy Ma named the target. Remy Ma looked directly at the clearance rack camp and said the quiet part with full enunciation. The clearance play on the outro is not a coincidence, it is a homophone bomb. It sounds like a name. It rhymes with a name. It lives in the exact same rhythmic pocket as a name. And every listener who has been paying attention to the last 12 months of gossip decoded it in 3 seconds flat. Remy Ma did not have to say Claressa Shields. Remy Ma made the rhythm of the English language say it for her. That is Grammy-level pen. That is Terror Squad architecture. That is the reason Papoose has never been able to keep up. Listen, I need y'all to understand what set this off, because Remy Ma has been in the culture for 2 decades and she has never, not once, publicly gone this scorched earth on a woman. Remy Ma has famously ignored the shots. Remy Ma has famously let bloggers argue on her behalf. Remy Ma has famously kept her family off the internet. So what changed? What flipped the switch? Claressa Shields, y'all. Claressa Shields flipped it. Claressa Shields opened her mouth about Remy Ma's daughter. Claressa Shields referred to Remy Ma's biological children as her stepkids. Claressa Shields talked about custody arrangements that are not hers to talk about, on somebody else's podcast, with somebody else's microphone, in front of somebody else's audience. And Remy Ma, being not just a rapper, but a mother who did 7 years for a woman she loved and came home to raise a daughter, Remy Ma looked at that and said, now you have gone too far. That is not a lyric. That is a doctrine. Do not put your hand on a mother bear's cub and then act surprised when your entire face gets swiped off. Here is where it turns, because everything Claressa Shields and Papoose have tried to do since the leak has actually made the situation worse for them. Papoose ran to Instagram to disavow the cease-and-desist as fake news, calling it a smear campaign, which is legally interesting given that his own lawyer literally has his signature on the letter. Papoose cannot say the letter is fake and simultaneously enforce it. Pick a lane. Meanwhile, Claressa Shields has stayed conspicuously quiet, which for a woman who has spent a year running her mouth about Remy Ma on every podcast in America is the loudest silence in the history of silences. Claressa Shields does not know how to sit down anymore, because Claressa Shields built the whole Papoose and Claressa brand on antagonizing Remy Ma. Without the fight with Remy Ma, there is no relevance. Without the fight with Remy Ma, there is no press cycle. Without the fight with Remy Ma, Papoose is a mid-level MC with a dusty catalog and Claressa Shields is a Michigan boxer who has never crossed over. The fight is the brand. And Remy Ma just took the brand off the shelf. Listen, as a matter of fact, let me lay out the financial architecture of this whole thing, because too many people out here do not understand who has been paying for what. When Remy Ma was locked away, the money that landed on her commissary books was Remy Ma's money. The money Papoose used to keep the roof over Remy Ma's apartment was Remy Ma's money. The money that funded the Papoose Visiting Remy public relations campaign was Remy Ma's money. Papoose was not holding her down. Papoose was administering an estate that Remy Ma pre-funded before she ever walked into a courtroom. And I want people to sit with that, because for almost 20 years the culture has been sold a myth, the myth of Papoose the loyal husband who waited on his queen, and the truth is that Remy Ma paid for her own crown, paid for her own castle, paid for her own guard at the door, and then handed the guard a paycheck to stand there. Sis. That is not a fairy tale. That is a payroll. Y'all, the second Papoose disrespected Remy Ma to a level that forced Remy Ma to remove him from her life, the entire mythology collapsed. Because Remy Ma stopped covering for him. Because Remy Ma stopped picking up the tab on his image. Because Remy Ma stopped translating his mumbles into Grammy conversations. And the second Remy Ma stopped, the whole world saw what Papoose has actually been the entire time, a mid-tier lyricist with one indie deal from before Remy Ma's incarceration, no charting record of his own, no radio single of his own, no touring residency of his own, and no cultural real estate that was not built on Remy Ma's back. Papoose was not the star. Papoose was the plus one. And the plus one just tried to leave the wife who was carrying his invitation. Look, and I need you to sit with the biblical weight of what is happening here, because whether you are a scripture person or not, the pattern is the pattern. There is an old proverb, he who finds a wife finds a good gift and obtains favor from the Lord. Papoose found Remy Ma. Papoose found the favor. And the day Papoose walked out on the favor was the day the ceiling started leaking. That is not superstition. That is causation. Every single blessing Papoose has ever enjoyed in this industry has had Remy Ma's name on the invoice, and the second he tried to reroute his life to the clearance rack camp, every check bounced. Anyway now, back to Claressa Shields, because the audacity of Claressa Shields walking into interviews and describing a family she has never sat at the dinner table with is the exact reason Remy Ma finally had to publicly clock her. Claressa Shields has been talking about a marriage she was not present for, a courtship she was not present for, and a career she cannot even properly footnote. Claressa Shields is a decorated athlete, the accomplishments in boxing are real, but Claressa Shields is not a hip-hop insider, is not a Bronx native, is not a member of Terror Squad, is not a friend of the culture, and has absolutely no historical standing to speak on Remy Ma's motherhood, marriage, or business. And the moment Claressa Shields tried to walk into that Bronx doorway with borrowed keys, Remy Ma changed the locks in front of the whole neighborhood. Hold on, though, because the cease-and-desist letter also drops in a line about, what if your daughter sees this, as a reason for Remy Ma to stop performing WIFL y'all. Y'all. Where was that concern when Papoose was allegedly on the phone all night with Claressa Shields inside Remy Ma's home? Where was that concern when Claressa Shields was calling Remy Ma's daughter her stepkid on a public podcast? Where was that concern when the pattern of the entire situationship was designed to be visible to that same daughter? You cannot invoke the child at the end of the story after you spent the first 4 chapters ignoring the child. That is not love. That is legal choreography. And Remy Ma, being Remy Ma, saw right through it, tucked the letter into a drawer, and went right back to the booth. Look, the biggest tell in this entire saga is that Papoose keeps referring to what is happening as a smear campaign. A smear implies false. A smear implies fabricated. A smear implies invented. But nothing Remy Ma has said on WIFL or Wanna Go is invented. Every bar is anchored in a real interview Papoose gave, a real quote Claressa Shields dropped, a real timeline the public can verify. This is not a smear campaign, family. This is a truth campaign. This is a documentary in verse. This is a woman who spent 17 years holding a very heavy secret, finally putting the secret down and letting the culture look at it. There is no fabrication here. There is only editing. And Remy Ma edited it beautifully. As a matter of fact, one of the most telling details in Remy Ma's response is the deliberate shout-out she embedded to Miss Shaika, another woman who has publicly caught strays from the same camp. Remy Ma did not have to name-check Miss Shaika. Remy Ma did not owe Miss Shaika a coalition. But Remy Ma understood something Claressa Shields and Papoose have never understood: solidarity is a weapon. By openly siding with Miss Shaika, Remy Ma essentially told every woman in the culture that if you have ever been publicly mishandled by this camp, you are not alone, and I have a microphone. That is not just a bar. That is a union card. And Claressa Shields does not have the emotional inventory to respond to a woman who has spent 2 decades quietly banking loyalty. Listen, here is the pattern y'all really need to internalize, because it applies far beyond Remy Ma. Every single time Papoose is asked to defend his current life, he does not defend it in the studio, on the mic, or with a record. Papoose defends it with paperwork, with Instagram stories, with press release language, with lawyer language. That is a man who has emotionally exited the fight. That is a man who knows he cannot win the fight. That is a man who is quietly praying for the entire news cycle to end so he can go back to being a mid-tier verse on somebody else's mixtape. And Remy Ma, sensing exactly that emotional exit, is refusing to let the cycle end. Remy Ma is going to keep performing WIFL. Remy Ma is going to keep dropping records in the same rhythmic pocket. Remy Ma is going to keep letting the culture connect the dots, because Remy Ma finally has permission, from herself, to stop covering. Sis, and let us not skip over the pettiness architecture of the Wanna Go release date, because the timing is not a coincidence, the timing is a message. Remy Ma released Wanna Go the day before Claressa Shields walked into the ring for a major bout. Any boxer, at any level, at any weight class, will tell you the last 24 hours before a fight are sacred. Sleep is sacred. Silence is sacred. Focus is sacred. And Remy Ma dropped a diss record directly into that 24-hour window, on every streaming platform, with a marketing engine behind it, on the exact eve of Claressa Shields' walkout. Claressa Shields had to lace up gloves with Remy Ma's voice in her earbuds. Claressa Shields had to weigh in with Remy Ma's bars playing on the promo. Claressa Shields had to hear her own homophone nickname over and over on the same speakers the pre-fight tape rolled through. That is not responding to a diss. That is psychological warfare with a distribution deal. Come to find out, and this is the part that quietly destroys the "we are just so in love" narrative, Papoose and Claressa Shields have been visibly cracking in front of the culture for months. Re-watch the last 4 Claressa Shields interviews back-to-back. Look at how her tone shifts when Remy Ma is brought up. Look at how her body language stiffens. Look at how Papoose in every recent joint appearance stands 2 inches farther from her than he did last year. Look at how her interviews have gotten longer and his have gotten shorter. Look at how she is doing the emotional labor of defending the couple by herself, and he is nowhere on the promo run. That is not a partnership. That is a woman holding up a brand while the co-founder quietly moves his belongings out the back door. And Remy Ma, being Remy Ma, sees the crack, drops a lyric into the crack, and lets nature do the rest. Look, I want to be fair, because Claressa Shields is a legitimate athlete. Claressa Shields is the most decorated female boxer of her generation. Claressa Shields has genuine Olympic hardware, a genuine world title resume, and a genuine claim on athletic history. None of that is up for debate. But athletic accomplishment does not translate into cultural fluency. Claressa Shields stepped out of a boxing lane where she is the champion and stepped into a hip-hop lane where the champion is Remy Ma. And in Remy Ma's lane, Claressa Shields is a rookie who came in swinging on a 15-year veteran and thought the referee would call the veteran for holding. Sis. This is not how this ring works. In this ring, the veteran hits back with a pen, and the pen leaves a mark that a lawyer cannot erase. Y'all, and speaking of legal, the funniest, most self-defeating part of the cease-and-desist is that it has done the exact opposite of what a cease-and-desist is supposed to do. The letter was designed to make WIFL go away. Instead, the letter has extended the shelf life of WIFL by 6 months. The letter is the reason WIFL is trending on X. The letter is the reason Wanna Go is streaming. The letter is the reason the diss is being replayed on morning radio in New York, Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit, Philly, Houston. Papoose did not silence Remy Ma. Papoose amplified Remy Ma. Papoose handed Remy Ma the promotional budget he could not afford to give her himself. And Remy Ma, whose entire career has been about turning attempted setbacks into anthems, wrapped the cease-and-desist around her mic like a bandana and kept going. Here is where it turns, because the deeper question is not who wins the diss. Remy Ma has already won the diss. The deeper question is what happens to the culture's memory of Papoose after this. Papoose is not going to be remembered as a Brooklyn lyricist. Papoose is not going to be remembered as a Terror Squad affiliate. Papoose is not going to be remembered as a K-Slay favorite. Papoose is going to be remembered as the man who fumbled Remy Ma, tried to destiny swap her, ran to a lawyer when she out-rapped him, and lost cultural custody of his own name. That is a legacy problem, family. That is not a news cycle. Papoose can drop 10 more mixtapes, get on 10 more podcasts, book 10 more BET appearances, and every single one of them will still open with the question, so, what happened between you and Remy Ma? There is no escape route from a legacy question. Listen, sis, the final piece I want y'all to sit with is that Remy Ma has not even fully weaponized her arsenal yet. Everything you have seen in WIFL and Wanna Go is Remy Ma at a controlled 70%. Remy Ma has not dropped a full-length response album. Remy Ma has not brought in Fat Joe on a hook. Remy Ma has not brought in Nicki Minaj as a features détente. Remy Ma has not opened the vault of every quote Papoose ever gave in the last decade. Remy Ma has not, I repeat, has not, put her hands on the receipts about the household finances during the incarceration years, and if Remy Ma ever chooses to walk that door open, there is no cease-and-desist on earth that closes it. Papoose and Claressa Shields should be praying, on their knees, in real time, that Remy Ma stays at 70%. Because Remy Ma at 100% ends careers on both sides of the situationship. Anyway now, here is the receipt-level truth about who is actually paying the tab in this whole saga. Every stream of WIFL is a check into Remy Ma's household. Every stream of Wanna Go is a check into Remy Ma's household. Every interview clip about the cease-and-desist is a check into Remy Ma's household. Every headline is a check into Remy Ma's household. The children, the same children Papoose's lawyer suddenly claims to be worried about, are eating off of Remy Ma's rebuttal. That is the beautiful irony, family. Papoose tried to shut down Remy Ma's music income and instead created her most profitable rollout in 5 years. Every time Papoose loses in public, Remy Ma's account gets fatter. This is the definition of a self-inflicted loss. Look, I have to name the thing that the culture is dancing around, because it is the real emotional engine of the entire saga. Claressa Shields wants to be Remy Ma. Not in a lyrical sense. Claressa Shields cannot rap and has never claimed to, but in a legacy sense, in a public love sense, in a the culture writes poems about your marriage sense. Claressa Shields watched Remy Ma be publicly adored for the Papoose loved me through prison myth, and Claressa Shields wants that myth transferred to her. But that myth cannot be transferred. That myth belongs to Remy Ma. That myth was built by Remy Ma's endurance, Remy Ma's silence, Remy Ma's dollars, and Remy Ma's pen. There is no shortcut into it. There is no destiny swap into it. There is no cease-and-desist into it. You cannot legally acquire another woman's mythology. And Claressa Shields, in trying to acquire it, has instead exposed the fact that she does not have one of her own outside of a boxing ring. Sis, as a matter of fact, the single most damning thing anyone can say about this entire ordeal is that if you took Remy Ma out of the story, nobody would be watching. Nobody is here for Papoose. Nobody is here for Claressa Shields. Nobody is here for the cease-and-desist. Nobody is here for the situationship. The audience is here for Remy Ma. Remy Ma is the ticket. Remy Ma is the reason the podcasts have guests. Remy Ma is the reason the blogs have headlines. Remy Ma is the reason Claressa Shields has a second act off the boxing ring. Remove Remy Ma from the equation, and Papoose is back to underground mixtape rotation and Claressa Shields is back to specialized boxing coverage. Papoose and Claressa Shields are quite literally riding Remy Ma's coattails while suing her for the fabric. Y'all, and let me tell you what this looks like from the outside, from a purely cultural bird's-eye view. This looks like a man who found a queen, mistook the queen for a stepping stone, and tried to step onto the next stone only to discover that the next stone was actually a puddle. Papoose did not upgrade. Papoose did not lateral. Papoose relocated from a mansion to a rental. And now the rental is on fire, the lease is expiring, and the mansion has taken back the keys. Every time Papoose posts, every time Claressa Shields interviews, every time the lawyer files, the fire gets bigger. And Remy Ma is watching from the mansion window, with a Grammy nomination in one hand and a diss track in the other, unbothered. That, family, is what winning looks like. Come to find out, this is not even close to over, because Remy Ma has an entire slate of scheduled appearances lined up, and every single one of them is going to include a WIFL performance, a wanna go performance, and probably a brand new bar written specifically for the room. Remy Ma is not going to stop. Remy Ma is not going to soften. Remy Ma is not going to negotiate. Because Remy Ma finally understands what the culture has been telling her for a decade: you owe this man nothing. You never did. The debt was fabricated. The story was rewritten. The favor was one-directional. And Remy Ma has spent 17 years subsidizing a mythology that was actively subtracting from her. That subsidy is closed. Effective immediately. And the collapse we are all watching in real time is what happens when the subsidy runs out. Look, I want to leave y'all with the one detail nobody is highlighting, because it is the detail that quietly changes everything. In the "Wanna Go" outro, Remy Ma stretches the word clearance, 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 3 times, on beat, in the exact rhythmic pocket where a name would land. That is a linguistic decision, y'all. That is a phonetic decision. Remy Ma turned a word into a nickname without ever committing libel. That is the pen of a woman who has been in courtrooms before, who understands defamation law, who understands the difference between a lyric and a legal exposure. Remy Ma cannot be sued for what she implied. Remy Ma can only be sued for what she said. And Remy Ma did not say the name, Remy Ma made the rhythm say it. That is why the cease-and-desist has no teeth. That is why the lawyer had to hide behind vague language. That is why Papoose looks smaller every day this drags on. Remy Ma is not just out-rapping him. Remy Ma is out-lawyering him inside her own bars. Sis, either way, here is what is going to happen next, because the pattern is already visible. Remy Ma is going to keep releasing. Papoose is going to keep filing. Claressa Shields is going to keep interviewing. And the cultural verdict is going to keep hardening in Remy Ma's favor, because the audience is not stupid. The audience can see who the mother bear is. The audience can see who the co-parent is. The audience can see who paid the bills. The audience can see who is still in the booth and who is in a lawyer's office. The audience is going to remember, 10 years from now, that Remy Ma stood on her name and Papoose stood on paperwork. And in hip-hop, the person who stands on their name wins every single time. Listen, the reason this story matters far beyond a rap couple squabble is that it is a masterclass in a very specific kind of female reclamation. Remy Ma is showing every woman in the culture what it looks like to stop covering. To stop translating. To stop softening. To stop absorbing. To stop paying the tab on a mythology that no longer feeds you. Remy Ma is showing every woman who has ever been the quiet architect of somebody else's public image what it looks like to finally put the blueprint in the fireplace and let the building tell on itself. This is not gossip. This is genre. This is the doctrine of, you can have your name back when I am done using it as evidence. And every woman watching, whether she is famous or not, understands exactly what she is watching. Y'all, before we close, I want to say the quiet thing out loud. Papoose is going to spend the rest of this year trying to rebrand this as a smear. Claressa Shields is going to spend the rest of this year trying to rebrand this as toxicity from the ex. Their supporters are going to spend the rest of the year trying to rebrand this as Remy Ma being bitter. But rebranding does not change receipts. The receipts are the ghost-written comment. The receipts are the Breakfast Club sit-down. The receipts are the stepkids language. The receipts are the 12-month interview pattern. The receipts are the leaked letter with Claressa Shields' name in it. The receipts are the "wanna go" release date. The receipts are the crowd at Angie Martinez's barbecue rapping along in unison. You cannot rebrand receipts. You can only pay them. Anyway now, as a matter of fact, Remy Ma has quietly done something historic without a single blog crediting her for it. Remy Ma has reset the standard for how a female MC responds to public disrespect in the 2020s. No fistfight. No livestream meltdown. No court of public opinion sob interview. No pity tour on TikTok. Just bars. Just a barbecue. Just a homophone. Just a release calendar. Just receipts. This is the cleanest, most professional, most cinematic public dismantling of a hip-hop couple I have watched in 10 years, and Remy Ma did it in 2 records, 1 performance, and 1 strategic silence. That is legacy work. That is the type of run they teach at business schools. That is the type of run they will still be quoting on the anniversary panels 10 years from now. Look, the last thing I will say tonight is this. Papoose had a good wife. Papoose had a rare wife. Papoose had the kind of wife whose loyalty is the closing keynote of every relationship podcast ever recorded. And Papoose looked at that wife, looked at the favor, looked at the 17 years of unrepaid labor, looked at the daughter, looked at the mansion Remy Ma built, and Papoose said, I would rather chase a rebrand. That is not just a fumble. That is a fumble at the 1-yard line with the crowd on their feet. And now the ball is in Remy Ma's hands, the clock is running out, and Papoose is on the sideline watching his own name run into the end zone in someone else's jersey. That, family, is the entire story. So talk to me, family, do y'all think Remy Ma is done, or do y'all think there is another record loaded in the chamber? Do y'all think Papoose actually knew about the cease-and-desist, or do y'all think Claressa Shields drafted it and slid it under his signature? Do y'all think this situationship survives the fall, or do y'all think we are watching a public dissolution in slow motion? Drop your verdict in the comments, tell me which bar hit the hardest, and let me know if you want me to break down "Wanna Go" line by line in the next drop. Hit the like. Hit the subscribe. Hit that bell, because when Remy Ma reloads, you do not want to be the last person on the internet to find out. Family, this one is not done, and neither am I. Talk soon.